It's odd how the smallest moments can peel back the layers of a long-hidden truth. For me, it came that morning in the kitchen when Marlene placed my coffee cup in front of me with more force than necessary. The clink of ceramic on wood echoed louder than it should have, and a few drops of coffee splashed over the rim. That tiny action should have been the first warning sign. "You're up late," she said, her voice light in a way that felt practiced, even forced, as she settled into the seat across from me. I looked up, noticing how carefully she avoided meeting my gaze. "I haven't been sleeping well," I replied. The truth was, sleep had eluded me for months. Something in our relationship had shifted subtly at first, like a quiet current pulling us apart. Now, when I looked at the woman across the table, I barely recognized her. The warmth that once made our home feel alive had grown cold. Our conversations had become clipped, her laughter barely a memory. Then came her request. She cleared her throat and stirred her coffee with unnecessary intensity, the spoon clinking rapidly against the cup. "Ira, I need a favor." I set my spoon down, already bracing myself for whatever was coming next. "What kind of favor?" She hesitated before speaking. "I need you to give my brother your credit card. Just for a little while." I stared at her, expecting her to laugh, to tell me she was joking. But her expression remained unchanged. No punchline followed. I exhaled sharply. "You're not serious." Her eyes hardened. "He's having a tough time, okay? And we can afford it." That word, "we," hit me hard. As if all the long nights, the pressure, the sacrifice I made at work to earn that money somehow belonged to both of us equally. As if she had the right to offer it up so casually. I shook my head firmly. "No, Marlene. I'm not doing that. Your brother." Before I could finish my sentence, searing heat exploded across my face. My breath caught as the scalding liquid hit my skin and soaked into my shirt. My vision blurred with pain and shock. The cup sat empty, and she stood motionless, her hands still suspended midair, her breathing sharp and shallow. I reached for my face, feeling the burn already setting in. "Did you just?" "You're unbelievably selfish," she snapped, her eyes gleaming with something unfamiliar. "You never do anything for me." Slowly, I pushed back my chair, gripping the table's edge to steady myself. The pain in my face was intense, but it wasn't just the physical sting, it was the realization that had finally become impossible to ignore. This wasn't love? Hadn't been for a long while. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. She had no idea what was coming next. A heavy silence settled over the kitchen. Coffee dripped from my chin, soaking into the fabric of my shirt. The heat clung to my skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill in her eyes. There was no concern there, no flicker of guilt. Just cold detachment. Almost like she was staring at a stranger. Or maybe I was the one who'd been blind to who she really was all along. Marlene didn't move. Her hands were still partially raised, fingers curved as though she was prepared to throw something else. The woman I married would have rushed over, grabbed a towel, apologized, maybe even cried. But this version of her? She stood motionless, her gaze hard and accusing, as if I were the one at fault. I wiped my face with my shirt sleeve, trying to calm my breathing. "You just threw hot coffee on me." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please, Ira. Don't be so dramatic. It was just coffee. Just coffee." I shoved my chair back and rose slowly, my pulse thudding in my ears. "No, Marlene. It's not just coffee. It's about you believing you can do anything without consequences." With her arms crossed, she narrowed her eyes. "I asked for one little thing. You're acting like I'm the worst wife imaginable." I let out a humorless chuckle. "One little thing? You wanted me to give your brother access to my credit card. The same brother who borrowed my tools and never returned them, crashed my car and left me with the bill, and let's not forget was fired from his last 3 jobs for stealing." Her face contorted in frustration. "You always dredge up the past. Don't people deserve a chance to change?" Shaking my head, I brushed past her and turned on the cold water, wetting a dish towel. Pressing it to my face, I welcomed the slight relief from the burn. Then I caught my reflection in the window above the sink. The man staring back at me looked like a stranger, tired, drained, almost broken. "You know what, Marlene?" My voice came out more solid than I expected. "This was never really about your brother." She scoffed loudly. "Here we go. Then what is it about, genius?" I turned, leaning against the counter, facing her fully. "It's about you. The way you've changed. The way you treat me like I don't matter anymore." She laughed bitterly. "So now respect means agreeing with everything you say? Letting you call all the shots in this relationship?" My grip on the damp towel tightened, knuckles whitening. "Control?" My voice dropped to a quieter, firmer tone. "Marlene, I've bent over backwards trying to hold this marriage together. I've ignored all the red flags. I had always given her the benefit of the doubt. I overlooked so much because I loved her deeply. But in that moment, everything shifted. I suddenly saw with painful clarity that I had been the only one trying to keep us together. That morning, for the first time, she faltered. It was subtle, just a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, before her usual guarded expression returned. "What are you trying to say?" she asked, her voice edged with challenge. I placed the towel gently on the counter and let out a slow breath. My hands trembled, not from the sting of the burn, but from the weight of the choice I had silently made. "I'm saying I can't keep pretending anymore. I'm tired of being the only one putting in the effort for this marriage." Her mouth opened slightly like she was about to respond, but nothing came out. She had braced herself for a fight, expecting me to raise my voice or argue. But I stayed calm. There was no anger, just certainty. I reached for my phone on the table and turned toward the hallway. "Where are you going?" Her voice rose, sharp and tense. I stopped but didn't look back. "I need some space." This time, I wasn't stepping out just to cool down. I was leaving to seriously consider if there was anything left worth holding onto. As I walked onto the porch, the cool morning air filled my lungs and the breeze helped settle the chaos in my mind. My hands still shook, not from the burn, but from a much deeper realization. I wasn't sure who Marlene was anymore. Maybe I never truly knew her to begin with. Everything outside looked deceptively peaceful. Birds chirped from tree branches, a couple of joggers moved down the street, and the world kept turning like nothing had changed. But inside that house, the foundation of my marriage had finally cracked beyond repair. I pulled out my phone and stared at the screen. Who was I supposed to call? My parents? That wasn't an option. They adored Marlene and would never understand. My old friends? Most of them had slowly faded from my life, almost as if they'd sensed our relationship crumbling long before I did. Without much thought, I tapped on a contact I hadn't called in months. The line rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Ira." It was Gwen, my older sister. I released a breath I hadn't noticed I was holding. "Yeah. Hey." She didn't waste time. "What's going on?" That was Gwen for you, always cutting straight to the heart of things, skipping the small talk. She could always sense when something wasn't right. I struggled to find the words. "It's Marlene. This morning, she threw hot coffee on me." I heard her gasp. "She did what?" I ran a hand down my face and explained she wanted me to give my credit card to her brother. I refused and she snapped. Now I'm out here trying to understand how it got this bad. Silence hung on the other end, then Gwen's voice grew more serious. "Ira, this isn't normal. It's not okay." I looked down at the porch steps, my foot tapping against the wooden boards. "I know. I mean, I do. But saying it out loud, it makes it real. You need to get out of there," she said, her tone steady and full of concern. "At least for a bit. Come stay with me." I let out a bitter laugh. "And tell Marlene what?" "That I'm taking a break from my own marriage. You don't owe her an explanation. You need space. Real space. Not just stepping outside for air." I almost argued, but deep down I knew she was right. I had spent years telling myself it would get better if I just tried harder. But the truth was, Marlene hadn't been the woman I married for a long time. Maybe she never had. "I'll think about it," I murmured, though both of us knew the decision had already been made in my mind. "Don't just think about it," Gwen urged gently. "Do it. And when you do, I'll be here for you." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "Thanks, Gwen." After ending the call, I stared at the phone for a while, my thoughts spinning. When I finally turned to go back inside, Marlene was already standing there. Her arms were tightly folded and she watched me with that familiar guarded expression. "Where'd you go?" she asked, her voice far too casual for the moment. I met her eyes, my heart thudding against my ribs. "Just outside." Her gaze sharpened. "You were on the phone." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time in our entire marriage, I wasn't explaining myself or trying to mend the situation. I had reached my limit. And she could tell. Because right then, something shifted in her face. Not anger. Not bitterness. But fear. Her body stiffened where she stood in the doorway, arms folded so tightly that her fingers turned pale. Still, that glimpse of fear I caught was quickly smothered beneath her usual cold exterior. "So now you're just walking out of conversations?" she snapped, her voice full of accusation. "When did you become that kind of person?" I exhaled slowly and closed the door behind me. Since the moment I stopped needing to justify stepping out for some air. Her lips parted slightly as though a response was ready to spill out, but for once she stopped herself. This version of me, the calm, detached one who didn't leap to smooth things over, wasn't what she was used to. She didn't like him. I placed my phone on the counter, walked past her, and made my way to the bedroom. Her gaze was like fire on my back as I opened the closet and pulled out my duffel bag. "What are you doing?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I began packing. A few shirts. 2 pairs of jeans. My phone charger. Every movement felt distant, like my body was following a script written by my subconscious. Marlene followed me in, her arms still tightly crossed. Ira, I asked you a question. I zipped the duffel bag halfway and finally met her eyes. I'm leaving for a few days. Her expression twisted with disbelief. Are you serious? Yes, I said firmly. I am. She laughed short and without warmth. Unbelievable. I toss a little coffee and suddenly you're running off like a scared little dog. My jaw clenched. This isn't about the coffee, Marlene. You know that. Then what is it? She demanded. Please enlighten me. Because from where I'm standing, you're acting like this is the end of the world. I exhaled deeply and sat on the edge of the bed, dragging a hand through my hair. It's about how our marriage stopped feeling like a marriage. It's about how I look at you sometimes and don't even recognize the person standing there. And honestly, I need time away to figure out if there's anything left here to save. Her posture shifted slightly, barely noticeable, just a flicker in her fingers, but it meant something. Her voice, when she spoke again, was softer, almost vulnerable. You're actually thinking about leaving me? I held her gaze. I don't know, Marlene, but I do know I can't keep doing this. Her breath quickened, her confidence beginning to fracture. But instead of softening, instead of reaching out, she fell into her usual pattern, deflection. Oh, now it makes sense, she said bitterly. You talked to Gwen, didn't you? I blinked, caught off guard. What? Your sister. That's who you called when you stepped outside, right? I said nothing. Silence was enough of an answer. She scoffed and shook her head, a humorless smirk tugging at her lips. Of course. She's always hated me. Always. And now she's finally succeeded, she's turned you against me. I stood up slowly, my frown deepening. Marlene, Gwen is not the problem. You are. She flinched as though my words had physically struck her. For a moment, a raw emotion, maybe pain, guilt, regret, flickered across her face. But just as quickly, it vanished behind a hard mask. She laughed bitterly again. Fine. Go ahead. Run away. But don't expect me to be here when you come crawling back. I gave a single nod, picked up my bag, and walked toward the front door. Got it. The hallway stretched before me as I walked through it, heart pounding and thoughts spinning. Leaving the house felt surreal, like a dream I hadn't quite woken from. Yet as I tossed my bag into the passenger seat of my car and slid behind the wheel, something unexpected settled over me. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles pale against the leather. The engine purred beneath me, waiting for my command. But I didn't back out of the driveway right away. I sat there, frozen, the weight of everything crashing down. I was really leaving. For so long, I had convinced myself that we just needed more time, more effort, more patience. That things would eventually improve. But now, sitting there alone, I saw the truth for what it was. This didn't happen overnight. It had been unraveling for a long time. I sighed and rubbed a hand over my face, still feeling the faint sting of the coffee she'd thrown earlier, its remnants dried into my shirt. If someone had told me 5 years ago that my wife would someday hurl hot coffee at me during an argument about a credit card, I would have laughed them off. And yet, here I was. A sudden knock on the car window startled me. My heart jumped as I turned to see Marlene standing there, arms tightly wrapped around herself. I lowered the window halfway, bracing for whatever came next. She leaned closer, her expression unreadable. You're really going? I swallowed. Yeah. I need some space. For once, her demeanor shifted. She wasn't angry. She wasn't guarded. She just looked lost. Where are you even going? She asked, voice low. I paused. Gwen's. Her jaw tensed. The old resentment sparked back in her eyes. Of course, she murmured. You'd rather be with her than here with me. I breathed out slowly. Marlene, I'm not doing this to hurt you. She let out a bitter breath. Well, you've got a funny way of showing it. I closed my eyes briefly, willing myself not to react in anger. I need time. Time to think. To figure out if what we have I gestured between us is even something that can be saved. She didn't speak right away, her eyes shifting downward, fixed on the ground. And if it's not, she began softly. My fingers closed around the steering wheel again, a tightness growing in my chest. Then we owe it to ourselves to face that truth, I replied. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a fleeting second, I saw something in her gaze that had long been absent, fear. But it wasn't fear of me. It was the fear of losing me. Her voice, barely a whisper, trembled as she said, You always promised you'd stay. I forced down a lump in my throat. I never imagined I'd have to leave, I answered honestly. She stepped back, folding her arms tightly across her chest as if bracing against a cold wind or trying to keep herself from falling apart. Fine, she muttered, almost under her breath. Go on, do what you feel you need to do. I gave a small nod, rolled up the window, and slowly shifted the car into reverse. As I backed out of the driveway, she remained standing there, motionless, her face impossible to read. And as I turned onto the street, the realization hit me like a wave. There was no sense of relief in leaving. Instead, I felt a deep and hollow grief, as if I had abandoned a part of myself I might never reclaim. The road ahead stretched endlessly, a gray ribbon disappearing into the horizon. The steady hum of the engine filled the car, but it couldn't drown out the storm in my thoughts. My hands stayed clenched around the wheel, my breath slow and deliberate. I had walked away, but I didn't feel free. The events of the past few hours played over and over in my mind like a film reel I couldn't stop. The coffee, the argument, the moment Marlene realized I was serious, those memories clung to me like a second skin. But something else was gnawing at me, something I couldn't quite explain, a restlessness that wouldn't let go. I should have kept driving. I should have focused on reaching Gwen's place, putting more miles between me and the disaster I had left behind. But an odd sensation crawled up my spine, compelling me to pause. Almost without thinking, I unlocked my phone and opened the old location-sharing app that Marlene and I had installed years ago. It was meant for travel emergencies, a source of comfort for both of us, rarely used. Yet now I opened it. A wave of tension swept over me as I saw her location. It wasn't her house. It wasn't her workplace. It was a hotel. My breath caught. I blinked, hoping the app had glitched, but the little dot remained steady. My heartbeat quickened, thudding against my ribs. Maybe she just needed space, a quiet place to think after everything. Maybe this was innocent. But somewhere deep inside I already understood. I veered off at the next exit, my mind racing. I didn't have a plan, I wasn't sure what I expected or what I would even say. A part of me still clung to the idea that this could all be a misunderstanding. By the time I rolled into the hotel parking lot, my chest felt crushed beneath invisible weight. A flickering neon vacancy sign buzzed above the front entrance, casting a pale, eerie glow over the pavement. I sat for a long moment, hands gripping the wheel tightly, trying to slow my breathing. This felt reckless. Foolish. But still, I couldn't bring myself to leave. Something deeper held me in place. I climbed out of the car and walked slowly toward the entrance. The cool evening air kissed my skin, though my palms were clammy with sweat. Inside, the hotel lobby was still, the receptionist barely glancing up as I passed by. I glanced at my phone. Room 418 on the 4th floor. The elevator moved at a glacial pace. In the mirrored walls, my reflection stared back, jaw tight, brows drawn. When the doors opened, I stepped out into a dim hallway filled only with the soft drone of air conditioning. My shoes whispered against the carpet as I made my way to the room. Room 418. I raised my hand and knocked. Nothing. A long moment passed. Then, footsteps. The door eased open, and there she stood. Marlene. Her eyes widened, her expression stiffening instantly. In that frozen second, she looked startled, like she'd been expecting someone else. She gripped the doorframe, her body tense. "Ira, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice uneasy. My throat felt constricted, but my words came calmly. "Strange," I said quietly. "I was just about to ask you the same thing." Still gripping the wheel, I tried to breathe evenly, eyes locked on the screen. My thoughts tumbled in every direction, scrambling for sense. Maybe she had a reason. Maybe she met up with a friend. Just maybe. No. Enough. I had spent too long pushing away suspicions, telling myself lies, convincing myself that the woman I had married wouldn't betray me. But standing there this morning, in the kitchen, with coffee sliding down my face and her silence heavy in the air, I had finally seen it. The truth. And now it stood before me again. I should have kept driving. I should have ignored the dread twisting in my stomach, the pounding in my ears. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I saw it for myself. My grip on the wheel tightened as I took the exit. Every passing mile brought me closer, each one thudding in rhythm with my racing heart. I didn't know what I would do when I got there. Confront her? Walk away? Would I even have the strength? I parked in the lot and killed the engine, my fingers digging into the wheel with so much force it felt like they might break. The neon vacancy sign buzzed weakly in the fading daylight, casting a pale glow over the half-filled parking lot. I remained in the car for a few seconds, taking slow, deliberate breaths to steady myself. This wasn't smart. It was reckless, one of those decisions you regret the moment you make it. But my instincts had taken over long before my thoughts caught up. I opened the car door and stepped out, feeling like I was moving through molasses. The hotel ahead was unremarkable, a basic chain that catered mostly to stranded business travelers and last-minute bookings. My feet carried me toward the entrance even as my mind screamed to turn back. My stomach churned with anxiety, and a dull ringing filled my ears. Inside, the lobby was hushed and still. A young man sat behind the front desk, barely looking up from his computer screen. I forced myself forward, each step echoing softly against the tiled floor, my legs feeling leaden. My fingers hovered near my phone, every instinct in me yelling to stop, to reconsider. But instead, I reopened the location app we both had access to. It showed the 4th floor. Room 418. I walked into the elevator, confronted by my own strained reflection in the mirrored walls. My face looked older, worn down, as if a decade had passed in just a handful of hours. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped into a quiet hallway. The beige carpeting silenced my steps as I moved past a series of nearly identical doors, each one holding secrets of its own. Finally, I stopped. Room 418. I stared at the number, frozen in place. My thoughts begged me to walk away, to leave before confirming what I already feared. But I had made it this far. I lifted my hand and knocked. Nothing. A pause, then faint footsteps approached. The door opened slightly. And there she was. Marlene stood in the doorway, her hair tousled, makeup smeared as if she'd wiped her face repeatedly. She wore a standard hotel robe, the belt loosely tied around her waist. When our eyes met, hers widened, not in surprise, but with guilt. I didn't need a detailed view of the room or any further explanation. I understood everything in that moment. She gripped the edge of the door tightly. "Ira, what are you doing here?" My mouth was dry. My throat constricted. I barely recognized my own voice as I replied quietly, "That's interesting. I was about to ask you the same thing." Marlene didn't move. Her fingers dug into the frame like she could keep the truth from slipping out. Though her guilt was written across her face, she still tried to control the moment as if she could still control me. She let out a quick breath, smoothing her hand down her robe. "Ira, this isn't." "Don't," I said. My tone was calm, but my hands trembled slightly at my sides. "Please, just don't." Her lips pressed into a line, tense and unreadable. "You followed me?" I laughed, the sound bitter and hollow. "No, Marlene. I left. I left because I finally realized what our marriage had become. I needed air. But then I glanced at our location tracker, you know, the one we said we'd use for emergencies, and saw you here, in a hotel." I gestured to her robe. "And now I'm standing here listening to you try and twist the story." She flinched, but that flash of pain quickly turned to anger. "You had no right to check my location. And you had no right to throw hot coffee in my face. But here we are." She went silent. For once, there was no quick rebuttal. She seemed unsure, scrambling for a response that would let her seize back the upper hand. The door creaked open a little more, and that's when I noticed it, the distinct shape of a suitcase on the floor behind her. One that didn't belong to her. A knot tightened in my chest. Still, I didn't let my expression falter. I exhaled slowly and nodded once, almost to myself. "How long?" She blinked. "What? How long?" My voice was dull, flat, stripped of emotion. But inside, it felt like my chest was collapsing inward. She didn't answer right away. Just a moment's hesitation, long enough. "It's not a..." "Don't lie to me, Marlene." My voice sharpened. "Not this time." Her shoulders dropped as her gaze fell to the floor. A few months. A few months. I had spent years investing in this relationship, reshaping myself into someone more patient, more understanding, someone who kept believing things could improve. And the whole time, she had been meeting someone else in anonymous hotel rooms like this one. I took another breath, slowly, deliberately unclenching my fists. "You could have told me," I murmured. Her eyes snapped up, her face strained. "Told you what?" "That I should walk away," her voice trembled. "That you didn't love me anymore," I finished for her. The words hovered between us like a heavy fog. She swallowed hard. It doesn't matter," I cut her off. "I get it now. I should have seen it for what it was a long time ago." Before she could speak again, I turned and began walking away. My body moved without hesitation, like it had already made the decision for me. "Ira," she called out. But I didn't pause. I didn't turn around. I walked steadily down the hallway and pressed the elevator button. When the doors slid open, I stepped inside and faced the mirrored walls once more. My reflection looked back, calm and collected. I had expected to be consumed by rage, pain, betrayal, but instead, what I felt was something closer to peace. I was done. I was free. As I stepped into the parking lot, my phone suddenly buzzed. A message popped up from Gwen. "Is everything all right?" I lingered on the screen for several seconds, unsure how to answer. Eventually, I typed back, "Yeah, it's going to be." After sending the reply, I got into my car and pulled away from the curb, never once glancing in the rearview mirror.